Incredible woman discovers $950 million mistake and makes amazing choice to return it all. Clara Thompson had just finished a long day at the bustling medical office when her eyes landed on something unthinkable in the financial records. It stared back at her, $950 million misallocated, sitting like a heavy stone in the balance sheets. Her heart raced as she scanned the documents again, desperately trying to convince herself that she was misinterpreting the numbers. The implications reverberated through her mind like thunder. It could change everything. That amount of money could end the struggles her family faced, erase debts, and even allow for a fresh start. She could provide Mia and Ethan a life free from worry, a life her late father had dreamed she'd achieve. But as temptation prickled at her, another voice echoed in her head, a whisper from her father that had become a guiding star in her life. Integrity matters. The dreams he fostered within her chest fought against the hunger for instant relief. How could she possibly betray her values? She wrestled with the tumult of emotions, guilt gnawing at her insides as she stared at that figure, an ocean of riches tinged with moral murkiness. Outside, Mason whispered its worries, families facing layoffs, friends struggling with the rusted chains of poverty. Clara felt that weight wrapping around her like a cloak, suffocating her thoughts. What if returning the money meant the very downfall of her community? The stakes were impossibly high. What if she lost all she had fought for? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now, let's continue. A heavy silence filled the air as Clara rested her head in her hands. Anguish tore through her thoughts like a streak of lightning. What if her colleagues viewed her choice as madness? She could already picture their faces, lined with disbelief. One bad choice could plunge her deeper into the abyss, an abyss she had worked tirelessly to escape. A shadow of anxiety loomed, paralyzing her with fears of isolation and judgment. And yet, the truth, that sparkling piece of honesty, gleamed like a beacon, urging her forward. Resolute, Clara paced the room, clouded by the gravity of her decision. How could turning back to honesty feel so liberating yet terrifying? All her polished plans of becoming an accountant felt suddenly inconsequential. Clara stumbled into an emotional chasm, her heart crying out for assurance while her mind screamed foul play. This was a choice, one that could fracture her relationship with her employer and her colleagues, but restore a glimmer of her father's legacy. As Clara steeled herself for the confrontation ahead, she noticed her hand wavering above the phone, her thoughts swirling like autumn leaves caught in a gust. The echo of her father's words lingered in the air around her, urging her to embrace the daunting truth. The world around her faded, narrowing her focus on that flickering decision point. What lay ahead would test the very essence of her being, challenging the integrity she clung to in a world trembling with temptation. In that moment, the floor beneath her felt unstable, yet it was the only ground she could stand on. As the memory of her father entwined with her resolve, a storm brewed inside her, pushing against the clock, pressing her against the wall. Would she stand by her principles and face the storm brewing in Mason, or would doubt unravel the fragile threads of hope and honor that she had woven with such care? The choice loomed ahead, and only one question remained. Could she truly make the right decision against overwhelming odds? The weight of her decision hung like an anvil, its gravity pulling Clara deeper into a sea of conflicted thoughts. With each passing moment, she felt the walls of the small office closing in on her. Claustrophobia mingled with anxiety, tightening her chest. Could she truly enact a change that would honor her father's values? Or would her choice cement her as a pariah among her colleagues at the firm, a reputation tarnished by a single act of betrayal? Clara shook her head, forcing clarity through the fog of her turmoil. She closed her eyes, recalling her father's steadfast belief that integrity was the bedrock of success. Every time he found himself at a crossroads, he would lean into his moral compass, guiding her to do the same. Living a life driven by honesty had been the most powerful legacy he left her, and now it was time to uphold that inheritance. But as she opened her eyes, the reality of the situation crashed down around her. Returning the misallocated funds would not erase the financial agony around her. It might even aggravate it. What if the firm faced bankruptcy? What if it meant laying off employees? The thought felt like a dagger to her heart. The community she loved could suffer irrevocably. Clara turned to her desk, scattered with reports and to-do lists that now felt like artifacts from a bygone era. She grabbed a pen, scribbling down her accounting on ideas to address the impending disaster. Finding a solution became her North Star: how to be honest without destroying lives. It was not enough to reclaim the funds. She needed to devise a plan. The hours slipped away while Clara mapped out potential conversations she might have with her bosses and colleagues. It was a risk, no doubt, but a calculated one. Could she not position herself as a beacon of hope, rallying her team to identify alternate solutions when the truth came to light? To frame her honesty as a route to accountability rather than a reason for shame? But doubts continued to linger like dark clouds. She envisioned the scrutiny she would face, the skepticism in eyes that were meant to be supportive. Would her efforts get twisted into accusations of incompetence or recklessness? The fear of alienation threatened to drown the conviction she was beginning to feel. She took a deep breath, reminding herself why this mattered. If she did nothing, she would be complicit in a wrongdoing that could devastate lives. Softly, she recited her father's words again: "Do what is right, not what is easy." It uplifted her spirit, igniting the determination she thought had dwindled beneath her doubts. Clara fired off a quick message to her supervisor, requesting a private meeting for first thing in the morning. She could feel her heart racing, but she knew it was now or never. In that fleeting moment of solidarity with her lost father, she grasped the pen with firmness, channeling her frustration and hope into her notes. Restless energy surged through her as she glanced out the window, taking in the twinkling city lights. Each one represented a story, a life woven into the fabric of Mason. She wasn't merely fighting for herself, she was magnifying the plight of others, an exhilarating prospect that propelled her forward. Would they see her as a traitor or a heroine in the struggle for survival? As she lay awake that night staring at the ceiling, Clara grappled with the magnitude of what was to come. She had ignited a spark within herself that could either ignite change or consume her completely. The tension between her dreams and the harsh realities of the world outside her window played like a rhythm in her mind. But one thing was clear: her transformation had just begun. Honesty would yield more than chaos. It would carve a path toward resilience. Tomorrow would be the moment of truth. Would her decision echo with confidence, or would it end in regret? Clara arrived at the office the next morning with a mix of apprehension and determination, her pulse quickening with every step towards her supervisor's door. Her resolve had crystallized through the night. She had prepared thoroughly, rehearsing her words in her mind like lines from a play. She envisioned the meeting, her clear, unwavering tone, the data she'd gathered, the potential solutions she could offer. This wasn't just about her integrity, it was about the future of Mason and the lives it touched. As she stepped inside the office, the familiar scent of freshly brewed coffee felt unusually heavy. The hum of conversations created an undercurrent of anxiety. Clara's stomach twisted, but she reminded herself that she was not alone in this. "Clara, come in," her supervisor greeted her, a look of mild curiosity in his eyes. Taking a deep breath, she entered the room, closing the door behind her. She slid into the chair opposite him, her palms clammy against the polished surface of the desk. Time felt suspended as she struggled to structure her thoughts into coherent sentences. "Thank you for meeting with me," she began, her voice steadier than she felt. "I wanted to discuss something important regarding the financial report from last quarter." A flicker of concern crossed her supervisor's face, but she pressed on. Her words flowed, layered with passion and urgency, as she laid out her discovery of the misallocated funds, framing the situation not as a mere error, but as an opportunity to uphold their company's values and protect their community. The moment hung like a fragile thread before snapping. His reaction was mixed, some confusion, perhaps a hint of anger at being blindsided. "Clara, this is significant. Are you sure you're not overreacting? I mean, mistakes happen." "No," Clara interrupted gently, her confidence growing as she shared her analysis, offering angles on how to mitigate the potential fallout. "It's about more than just numbers. It's about trust. Honesty at this moment can define who we are." As she outlined her proposal, suggesting a transparent approach that included stakeholders in developing a solution, she saw her supervisor's skepticism slowly shift toward contemplation. Suddenly, something sparked within her, the realization that this wasn't merely a presentation, it was a negotiation for her own values, a request for alignment rather than simply an explanation of wrongdoing. "Clara, you're passionate about this. I can see that," he replied, leaning back in his chair. "But it's risky. There is a lot at stake here. It could affect our reputation, even lead to legal implications." A breath caught in Clara's throat, the weight of implications shifting like sand under her feet. But if she backed down now, what would it say about her commitment to integrity? "What's at stake is being honest with ourselves and with those we serve," she insisted, her voice stronger. "I'm prepared to lead the way." They cycled through concerns and rebuttals, each exchange escalating the tension yet deepening her resolve. Clara could feel her mind racing. She was not just defending her position, but also discovering her capacity to navigate complex dilemmas. As the dialogue unfolded, she discovered an unexpected talent for negotiating the intricacies of corporate ethics and navigating disagreements. It was invigorating, this challenge, each counterpoint a chance to define her approach to leadership, her foundation built upon integrity. Eventually, her supervisor's expression softened. "All right, let's explore this further," he said, a cautious smile forming. "I'll support you in laying out a strategy." Clara's heart soared, fueled by gratitude and a newfound belief in her capabilities. But as excitement blossomed, trepidation wove its way through her. She had moved from contemplation to action. Now she faced a broader scrutiny that awaited her as they unfolded the plan to the rest of the team, and the potential backlash from those resistant to change. Just as she began to feel the thrill of opportunity and agency, a chilling notion arose. What if her pursuit of integrity opened the door to confrontation with unexpected detractors? The looming question of whether she would stand as a beacon or be branded as a disruptor threatened to eclipse her triumph. The hours slipped away in discussions, precautionary frameworks beginning to solidify. But outside the confines of her office, real storms were brewing. Would she stand her ground amid the pushback, or retreat into the safety of compliance? As Clara walked out of the office, a bittersweet tension threaded through her. She had taken a quantum leap towards her ambitions, yet the true test of her character now lay ahead. Would she navigate the labyrinth of corporate ethics and emerge unsullied, or would the struggle for integrity become her greatest battle? Tomorrow loomed large. Would her actions finally forge a path to resilience? Or would the emerging realities drown her in regret? The next morning dawned clear and bright, yet Clara felt the storm brewing inside her. With her heart hammering in her chest, she paced through her apartment, mentally rehearsing what she would say to the team. Today wasn't just any presentation. It was her chance to lead, to enforce her principles in real time. As she buttoned her blazer, she reflected on the discussions from yesterday. They had ignited a fire within her, but they also left her with an undeniable sense of vulnerability. Clara arrived at the office, her pulse steadying with each determined step. The atmosphere buzzed with the usual morning chatter, but today a thick layer of anticipation hung in the air. She greeted her colleagues with a smile, but inside she felt like a tightrope walker, teetering on the brink of a crucial performance. Gathering the team was the first obstacle. When she stepped into the conference room, she was met with curious and skeptical faces, the remnants of murmured conversations crescendoing into a hush. She positioned herself at the head of the table, the whiteboard behind her stark and looming. As she prepared to speak, the weight of her mission dawned on her. Thank you all for coming today. I wanted to have an open discussion about our recent financial reports. Her voice was firm, resonating with an authority she hadn't known she possessed. As she introduced her findings, a concerned frown crossed the faces of her peers. There was a moment of silence as the cold reality of her revelation settled. We discovered discrepancies amounting to nearly $1 million, she continued, scanning the faces before her. This isn't merely a mistake. It's an opportunity to align ourselves with our values and reinforce our integrity as a company. She felt the tension in the room were palpable. It wrapped around her, forming a cocoon of uncertainty and fear. For every point she articulated, she could sense the skepticism bubbling beneath the surface. One voice, Derek, broke through the silence, his skepticism sharp. Clara, you're not seriously suggesting we publicly disclose this. It could ruin us. The air felt electric. Clara inhaled deeply, channeling her nerves into clarity. Derek, what's at stake is more than a dollar amount. It's our brand, our ethics. If we prioritize transparency, we'll not only rectify this, but also earn the trust of our stakeholders. Voices began to rise, arguments ignited, and Clara felt the strain of opposition. Each critique was a challenge, and for the first time, she felt the weight of her leadership aspirations colliding with a harsh reality. Yet, every rebuttal prompted a new layer of resolve within her. She answered questions, countered dissent, and in each response, she saw a flicker of hesitation among her peers. Perhaps they too sensed the depth of their collective responsibility. Then came the pivotal moment. An ally emerged. Jennifer, who had been mostly quiet, spoke up. I agree with Clara. If we can turn this mistake into a learning experience, it could actually strengthen our position in the market rather than damage it. The energy shifted perceptibly. Clara grasped at this alliance like a lifeline, feeling reinvigorated by Jennifer's support. With newfound momentum, Clara steered the discussion towards a plan. She detailed how Mason could adopt a transparent corrective strategy, emphasizing the importance of a robust ethics framework going forward. The room, once a battleground, began to transform into a collaborative space of ideas. Clara felt powerful. She was leading, negotiating, and evolving through their dialogue. As the meeting wrapped up, Clara walked away buoyed by the unexpected coalition she had formed. The challenge wasn't over. They would face opposition from senior management and perhaps even external critics, but she had taken a monumental step toward being the leader she aspired to be. However, a shadow lingered in the recesses of her mind. The hesitant responses from some of her colleagues hinted at deeper divisions within the organization regarding ethics and accountability. Clara knew that the coming days would reveal the true dynamics of her colleagues' support and resistance. Just as she began to believe that momentum was on her side, her phone buzzed ominously with a message from her supervisor. We need to talk about your presentation today. A chill raced through her. What awaited her outside the collective support of her colleagues? Would she be able to unite her team in the face of potential backlash? Or would she find herself standing alone against the forces that sought to maintain the status quo? Clara stood outside her supervisor's office, the door looming like a gate to another world filled with judgment. The warm buzz of post-meeting camaraderie faded as urgency settled around her. She was not ready for this conversation. She brushed her hands against her blazer, wiping away the unwelcome perspiration, and steadied her breath. The truth was that while she had felt powerful in the meeting, she was now confronting her self-doubt once again. Flipping her hair back, she entered the room. Matthew, her supervisor, sat at his desk, arms crossed and eyebrows knitted together. The moment she across the threshold, he shifted in his chair, the unspoken tension palpable. "Clara," he began, the weight of troubled authority clinging to his tone. "I understand you have a strong vision regarding transparency, but disclosures of this magnitude can have significant repercussions, not just for the financials, but for the company's reputation." Clara met his gaze head-on, determined not to cower under the scrutiny. "I'm aware of that, Matthew, but I've seen what happens when organizations avoid the hard truths. It eats away at them from the inside. If we approach this issue honestly, we can turn what seems like a disaster into an opportunity for growth." He leaned back, skepticism etched across his face. "That's bold, Clara, but it's also risky. Are you prepared to stand by your decision when the board questions it?" A flicker of uncertainty floated through her, but she extinguished it swiftly. This was a test, not just of her idea, but of her resolve and integrity as a leader. "I'm prepared to face the consequences if it means bringing our values and ethics into alignment with our actions, even if it means separating from those who think otherwise." Those words hung in the air, vibrant with conviction. Matthew's expression shifted, the edge of doubt softening, if only slightly. "You could lose allies. Many may resent you for challenging the status quo." With every word he spoke, Clara felt her spine strengthen. "Then I'll have to find the ones who believe in integrity over complacency. I cannot lead a team that prioritizes profit over principles, not when I know the consequences of inaction." His fingers drummed lightly on the desk, and Clara sensed the internal struggle within him. Finally, he exhaled, a subtle sign of acquiescence. "Let's discuss a strategic way to frame this for the board. If you're going to make your case, it should be evident that we're not only addressing a mistake, but executing a plan for redemption." Relief surged through her, and she nodded. "Thank you for considering this. Together, we can make sure our actions echo our commitments. I don't want to be just a voice. I want to be a catalyst for change." As they outlined a strategy together, Clara felt her confidence swell. Each point of agreement allowed her to explore her leadership capabilities further, and with Matthew's support, a light flickered at the end of the tunnel. After leaving his office, Clara found herself in the common area, reflecting on the complexity of operating within an ecosystem that oscillated between ambition and ethics. She had allies, but how many would stand the test when the stakes raised significantly? She gathered her team the following week with a clear objective. She would present the comprehensive strategy to the board. But that wouldn't be the only challenge. With another team member, Lucas, showing signs of dissent, Clara sensed that her path would soon become riddled with obstacles. Would she be able to maintain unity and enthusiasm within her team amidst the pressures of opposing opinions and the looming shadow of her supervisor's reservations? As she prepared for the next stage in her journey, one thought held tight in her mind. The upcoming board meeting could either be her moment of vindication or her professional crucible. The duel for the company's integrity was only just beginning, and the stakes felt higher than ever. Would Clara's aspirations for ethical leadership survive the chess match to come? Clara spent the next few days immersed in preparation, her mind racing to anticipate every possible question and critique the board might hurl her way. Each time she opened the presentation deck, a swell of determination coursed through her. She wasn't just crafting a defense for her disclosures, she was forging the future of her principles against an impending storm. The team meeting called by Clara was crucial, yet she sensed unease simmering beneath the surface. Lucas sat with his arms crossed, his brows drawn together in a fierce display of dissatisfaction. Clara tried to ignore the gnawing apprehension in her stomach as she began her presentation, detailing the concept of transparency alongside the ethical implications of their decisions. She poured her conviction into every word, hoping to inspire commitment rather than fear. "Let's not shy away from the hard truths," she urged, her voice steady. "If we present an honest account, we open ourselves to an opportunity that could redefine our company's ethos." But before she could elaborate further, Lucas interrupted, a sharpness in his tone. "Clara, you can't expect everyone to just accept this. You think peppering a few moral virtues into your slides will make the board see the light. We'll look weak, and that'll cost us." His words struck her like a bolt, ricocheting through the room. She could feel the weight of the other team members' eyes shifting from her to Lucas, a palpable tension thickening the air. Clara felt her heart race, the urge to lash out battling with her desire to maintain control. Keeping her voice measured, she responded, "And continuing to ignore these issues will only lead us down a darker path, Lucas. We need to show we can address our mistakes head on. Otherwise, we risk losing not only client trust, but our own integrity." Yet the hesitance in his glances told her that Lucas wasn't alone in his doubts. How many others felt the same? Clara's mind flickered with doubts of her own. Perhaps she was overestimating her team's readiness to embrace such bold changes. Maybe her focus on moral clarity through transparency was making her blind to practicality. As the meeting adjourned in palpable silence, Clara lingered, watching as Lucas stalked out with a scowl. Uncertainty began to seep under her skin. She was standing on a precipice, but was she capable of galvanizing her team behind her vision? How could she reach out to those hesitant voices before they became an echoing dissent? Back at her desk, she wrestled with these conflicting thoughts, her fingers drumming. Nervously on the surface, an idea began to take root, a revelation that could redefine her approach. Rather than pushing her agenda without assessing their fears, she needed to engage those who were skeptical directly. She'd create a safe space for constructive dialogue, bringing Lucas and others into the fold. Resolutely, she drafted another meeting invitation, a dialogue-centric session where everyone could voice their concerns. This time, she would not just present her ideas, she would listen. If she was to lead, it had to be through collaboration, empathy, and collective strength. That evening, as she reviewed her plan, another thought prickled at her mind. Would she be able to quell the dissent that simmered in Lucas and the others, or was she merely digging deeper into a potential conflict? The next chapter in her journey loomed on the horizon, waiting to reveal whether the path of collaboration would forge stronger allies or ignite an undeniable confrontation that would test her leadership like never before. Clara entered the office the next day, a renewed energy coursing through her veins. A dialogue-centric meeting was set for later that afternoon, and she could feel the weight of her decision pressing down on her, not as a burden, but as a catalyst for change. Would her willingness to listen embolden her team, or would it merely expose her vulnerabilities? She arrived early, her mind whirling with strategies for engaging her team. The sun spilled through the windows, providing a warmth that contrasted with the cool apprehension gathering in her stomach. She arranged the seating in a circle, envisioning an open space for discourse. It was important they felt equal, like collaborators rather than subordinates. As the hour approached, she recalled Lucas's skepticism, the sharp bite of his words still fresh in her mind. Was he genuinely concerned about the repercussions of transparency, or was there a deeper fear that he was masking? Questions rattled around in her head, and she hoped that this meeting would help her uncover not just the barriers preventing their unity, but also her unwarranted doubts. The team filed in slowly, veterans of their roles yet uncertain about this new approach. Clara greeted each member, but her gaze kept returning to Lucas, who entered last, his posture tight and wary. When everyone settled in, Clara initiated the session, addressing the elephant in the room. I know that the last meeting may have felt confrontational. My goal today isn't to dictate our direction, but to understand your perspectives, your fears. She felt a small spark of hope. Perhaps they would open up. Clara invited anyone willing to express their thoughts to begin. Clara, this is all great in theory. Lucas interrupted, his expression fierce. Which is precisely why we're here. Tell me what concerns you, she countered, surprising herself with her calm assertiveness. His eyes narrowed slightly, as if sizing her up before responding. If we lay all our cards on the table, we risk giving our competitors ammunition. What's going on? To stop them from taking advantage? Clara absorbed his words, trickling in the anxiety that swirled around the room. What if we framed it differently? By acknowledging our missteps, we could disarm potential threats. We assure clients that we're actively working to improve. A ripple of murmurs followed, but the seeds of doubt still lingered. Clara could feel the undercurrent of skepticism coiling tight. She chose to delve deeper. Let's think about integrity. What does it mean for us, both as individuals and as a company? Elena spoke up, her fingers nervously tugging at her sleeve. It's about trust, I suppose. But, Clara, if we admit to mistakes, we risk losing ground, losing credibility. Clara nodded, a protective urge blossoming within her. What's the long-term cost of hiding mistakes? She pushed gently. Is a short-term gain worth potentially rupturing our long-standing client relationships? The dialogue began to flow, voices overlapping as ideas pinged back and forth, conflicting opinions emerging as just that, opinions, not absolute truths. Clara facilitated, her role shifting from presenter to mediator, her heart swelling with a sense of purpose. She was nurturing a storm of ideas that could reshape their framework, and yet the discontent lingered like a shadow. As discussions rolled on, Clara observed Lucas, his demeanor softening. For the first time, there was a hint of contemplation rather than outright dissent. It was a small victory, but one she felt capable of building upon. However, as she glanced at the clock, time seemed to evaporate. A chilling realization gripped her. Beneath her emerging leadership was an unspoken tension that remained unaddressed. What if today's progress faltered tomorrow? With half the meeting done, Clara tossed an unexpected question to the room. What if we don't just share our shortcomings, but also the possibility of transformation? The air thickened with anticipation, the metaphorical weight of her team's uncertainties dangling over them. Would they embrace the opportunity for growth, or would her radical transparency lead to unforeseen backlash that could fracture them further? Clara's heart raced. In choosing the path of openness, she had invited a reckoning. She needed to brace herself for what awaited next. The choice to lead was evolving into an unpredictable journey, one that would challenge her values in ways she never anticipated. Would they rise together, or would their fractures deepen? As she glanced around at her teammates, she felt the tension pulsing. The moment hung in the air, waiting to either triumph or unravel. As the meeting progressed, Clara sensed the dynamic shifting subtly among her team. With each shared concern, vulnerability crept into the conversation. The room, once encased in skepticism, now echoed with the sincerity of collective uncertainty. Clara held her breath, feeling the tremors of change guiding her. Her apprehensions about transparency were still very much alive, but hope started weaving itself around her anxieties, pushing her to inquire further. Let's talk about possibilities, she urged, leaning forward as if pulling her colleagues closer. What could transformation look like for us? Imagine if we could embrace our shortcomings and turn them into opportunities for innovation. Elena's brow furrowed in contemplation before she ventured, It might build trust, but are we truly prepared for the risks? Sometimes ignorance can be safer. Clara pounced on the moment, her heart racing at the thought of the trust she was trying to cultivate. And if we choose ignorance, we risk stagnation. Look around. Our industry is evolving, and so must we. This is about more than just acknowledging mistakes. It's about collectively moving forward. Lucas remained silent, yet physically present, his arms crossed tightly over his chest. Clara could almost see the gears turning behind his guarded eyes. She realized that every participant had a stake in this uncomfortable dialogue, including Lucas, whose skepticism felt like both a challenge and a key. With every question proffered, she was not only mapping their fears, but also subtly steering her own doubts into the light. As we ponder transformation, I invite you to consider the actual power of collaboration, Clara propelled, igniting the spark of vulnerability in the room. We've endured missed deadlines and requests filter through a broken chain. Imagine if clients knew we were aware of our challenges. Wouldn't that instill more confidence? A flicker of agreement shimmered across the room. Clara felt her own conviction solidifying, the path feeling both daunting and invigorating. There was potential here, but it required pushing through the upfront discomfort. She addressed Lucas directly. "What do you think, Lucas? Where do you see the line between vulnerability and strength?" The room went quiet. Clara's heart pounded with the challenge. Lucas's jaw tightened. She could read the discomfort there. For a moment, she feared that his answer would disrupt the fragile open space they were cultivating. But instead, he unfolded slowly. "I see strength as offering assurance. If we reveal our flaws, we have to ensure we have solutions. There's no point in admitting failure without a plan." Clara couldn't help but feel a surge of gratitude. This wasn't just opposition, it was critical thinking. She realized that Lucas was processing, not just critiquing. Exactly. We need an action plan, a commitment to improvement. That's not weakness, it's clarity. We need to establish that we're a team ready to adapt. Unease mingled with dawning insight among the assembled team. Suddenly, their barriers became assets capable of being transformed, channeling energy instead of blocking it. Clara steered the conversation toward structure, encouraging them to brainstorm a foundational strategy to address previous missteps collectively. As they drifted through suggestions, ideas began crystallizing, offering solutions that echoed Clara's initial concept of transparency, coupled with accountability. She felt a rush of hope. They were not merely discussing theoretical paradigms, they were sculpting actions. Then, as the clock edged towards the end of the meeting, a sudden realization jolted Clara. She was forging a new reality, yet the specter of unresolved issues lingered. Were they truly ready to embrace the forthcoming scrutiny if they were? To admit past mistakes? The thought sent a wave of uncertainty through her, prompting her to voice it. What if the very mistakes we address have repercussions, even among us? How would we react when faced with scrutiny? A nervous energy permeated the room. Clara knew she had opened a box that, once unearthed, could not easily be closed. They had distanced themselves from merely discussing their fears. They were posed on the brink of confronting their realities. It was time to embrace this discomfort. Clara took a deep breath, weighing her next words carefully. If we don't face this together, we may risk fracturing our trust altogether. But if we do? The atmosphere hung heavy with reverberations of possibility, laced with fear, an unpredictable territory ahead. Would they find solidarity, or would the unraveling lead them to deeper fissures? Clara's resolve solidified as the future seemed both tantalizing and daunting. This dialogue might not just reshape her team, it could redefine her journey as a leader. Would they embrace the challenge or retreat into a familiar yet stifling silence? Only one answer lingered in the open air, a question hovering just out of reach, ready to propel them into the unknown. The moment hung in the air like a charged storm cloud, thick with tension and potential. Clara felt her heart race, not just from the weight of her words, but also from the collective breathless anticipation of her team. They had turned a corner, unveiling the raw truths hiding beneath layers of compliance and hesitance. Now it was time for the next step, and with it, the potential for both growth and failure. Clara gathered herself, needing to harness the energy swirling around the room. Our conversation has sparked ideas, but we need a solid structure to channel this momentum, she said, her voice steady, a contrast to the chaos within. Let's propose a meeting in 1 week. During that time, I want each of you to reflect on one specific challenge you would like us to address as a team. But more importantly, think deeply about possible solutions. She could feel eyes sharpening at her, absorbing her words. Lucas's previously crossed arms slowly unfurled, revealing a keen interest. Clara's heart fluttered. She realized he was beginning to engage rather than retreat. Yet with every step forward, she grappled with the nagging feeling of doubt. Would she find the necessary support to match her ambitions? Clara, Elena came in gently, her voice puncturing the brief silence. I appreciate this direction, but what if nobody can find solutions? What happens then? A deserved question, one that illuminated the haunting sense of inadequacy lurking among the team. Clara inhaled carefully, weighing the gravity of her response. Then we seek outside perspectives. Consulting with others may provide insight we're missing. It was an uncharted plan, drawing from vulnerability, but perhaps that uncertainty was what they needed to galvanize action. Are we prepared for that? Lucas interjected, his cautious demeanor resurfacing. Inviting expert. Opinions requires us to admit we don't have all the answers. Isn't that riskier? Clara sensed the challenge, but recognized a flicker of engagement in Lucas's voice. Yes, she affirmed, but it's that admission which enables growth. We are not a storage facility for ideas. We must be a breeding ground for solutions. The conversation shifted as her colleagues began to vocalize their own apprehensions, weaving a narrative of both fear and hope. They balanced on the edge of revelation, and Clara felt a tremendous weight lift slightly off her shoulders. This was not simply about addressing mistakes. It was about redefining their approach to problem solving, a proactive way to transform the culture they had confined themselves to. Clara's mind whirled with possibilities, assessments, and strategies while they fleshed out these ideas. Yet, as faces lit up with inspiration, a thought remained lodged in her mind. What if this process exposed not only their weaknesses as a team, but also her own leadership shortcomings? She often felt like an imposter herself, balancing between confidence and self-doubt while trying to navigate the vision they collectively shared. The meeting dissolved slowly into more personal conversations as colleagues connected over their own vulnerabilities. Clara felt a pang of connection, but also a growing realization. If she was to be the leader they needed, she would have to confront her own uncertainties directly rather than candy coat them. By the end of the meeting, a new strategy had emerged, one bolstered by the unearthing of raw emotion. Clara felt an intoxicating blend of excitement and trepidation. The uncharted waters ahead could either lead to success or deepen fractures. As they wrapped up, Clara paused momentarily before speaking. Before we leave, I want to address something openly. This journey won't be smooth, and facing past mistakes may expose gaps in our abilities. But that exposure is where our true strength lies. We need to be committed to this. She looked around, meeting each gaze, searching for the hint of reflection she hoped to see. The moment felt monumental, a threshold where commitment wavered between trepidation and resolve. With lingering uncertainty, Clara called for the meeting's end. Yet amidst that uncertainty, a powerful thought rippled through her. A daunting choice lay before her. How far could she push her team? What if they failed? The variations of what lay ahead filled her with restless anticipation. The open possibilities were both exhilarating and terrifying. Clara moved through the room, every sense heightened. She had ignited a fire. Now she needed to ensure it didn't burn out. As her colleagues made their way out, Clara caught a glimpse of Lucas's contemplative expression. He was wrestling with the upward momentum they had created together. Would he be the catalyst for deeper conversations or become yet another barrier in their evolving dynamic? That question, coursing through the tension-filled room, swirled with Clara's own uncertainties, hinting at unexplored avenues of conflict and clarity ahead. What awaited her in the next weeks was entirely unknown. Yet essential, the true test of leadership and strength was just beginning to reveal itself. As the week unfolded, Clara channeled every ounce of her energy into preparing for the upcoming board meeting. Each day blurred together, she researched, strategized, and drafted solutions, determined to present a resolved front that aligned with her vision of integrity and accountability. With each rehearsal, she solidified not only her argument, but her inner conviction, a belief that their transparency could lead to a stronger foundation for the company. On the morning of the meeting, Clara walked into the conference room with renewed assurance. The air buzzed with anticipation, her colleagues seated around the long table, a mix of anxious and curious expressions. Her heart raced, but she welcomed the flutter of nerves as it reminded her of the importance of this moment. She had a clear goal: showcase the power of truth and its potential to drive transformation. The board members entered, the atmosphere thick with expectation. Clara felt the weight of the situation settling on her shoulders. This was not merely a presentation, but a defining moment that could either solidify her role as a leader or unravel the progress they had made as a team. Taking a deep breath, she launched into her presentation. Clara focused on the misallocated funds, meticulously outlining not just the numbers, but the ethical implications of their disclosure. Transparency doesn't just safeguard our integrity, it presents us with an opportunity to rebuild trust with our employees, clients, and community, she asserted, her voice rising with conviction. Initial reactions from the board were skeptical, questioning the wisdom behind a candid disclosure, but Clara stood her ground. Each time a concern was raised, she leaned into her collaborative strategy, referencing the discussions held with her colleagues and the collective commitment to ensure accountability. Drawing from their ideas and insights, she outlined a proactive plan that involved consulting with industry experts to guide their corrective measures. As the dialogue unfolded, Clara saw glimmers of intrigue among the board members. They began to engage with her concepts. Hesitation shifted to speculation about the potential ripple effects of a transparent approach. Clara felt a growing sense of empowerment. She wasn't just defending a position, she was sculpting the narrative surrounding their ethical redundancies into an echoing call for transformation. Then came the pivotal moment when David, a senior board member known for his unwavering pragmatism, leaned forward and addressed Clara directly. What you're proposing requires not just boldness, but also a willingness to stand firm amidst the backlash. Are you prepared for the potential fallout from our stakeholders? Clara's heartbeat quickened, but she maintained eye contact, summoning every lesson she had learned throughout this demanding journey. Absolutely. This moment is not about avoiding the storm. It's about weathering it with integrity at the forefront of our actions. The room held its breath. Clara felt the collective weight of their scrutiny, yet the familiar whispers of doubt were drowned out by her deep-seated belief in her vision. Confronting the challenge of integrity was no longer solely her burden. It was a shared commitment, one that brought her colleagues into the fold. When they voted on the proposed strategy, Clara felt the heat of anticipation curl within her. The outcome felt entirely tangible and woefully uncertain, but she had fought valiantly, demonstrating the growth she had achieved in the last few weeks. To her elation, the board approved the plan to disclose the misallocations and work collaboratively toward rectifying discrepancies. Cheers erupted in the room, a chorus of relieved voices fluttering through her as colleagues exchanged glances of newfound respect. Clara's heart soared as she accepted the praise, standing amidst her peers, her allies. They had cultivated a shared sense of innovation, navigating the complexities of ethics together, forging connections unlike any she had anticipated. With the endorsement from the board, Clara's focus flipped from vigilance to action, They would harness their momentum and follow through with real-world accountability. In the weeks that followed, Clara embraced her role as a beacon of leadership at Mason. She spearheaded meetings that delved deeper into ethical frameworks while fostering an environment where everyone felt empowered to speak their minds. Lucas, who had initially stood as an opponent, emerged as a crucial ally, frequently sharing constructive insights that further strengthened the tide of change they were instilling. Even as she reveled in newfound confidence, Clara remained acutely aware of her ongoing journey. Each confrontation with the complexities of leadership surfaced authentic personal growth. It was nearly unrecognizable to her. The timid accountant who once quavered at the prospect of sharing her truths had transformed into a poised advocate for integrity. Gradually, the team noticed a cultural shift. They were no longer reluctant to disclose difficult conversations. With openness came collaboration, and with collaboration, the promise of innovation. Clara had achieved a delicate balance between evaluation and enhancement, and she stood recognized as not only a competent leader, but also a pillar of fortitude within her organization. On the day the firm announced the corrective measures to their stakeholders, Clara felt a swell of pride. They did not simply convey a narrative of error, but framed it as a conscientious effort toward improvement, proving that transparency does not equate to weakness, but signifies strength and a relentless commitment to accountability. As the weeks rolled into months, Clara reveled in her metamorphosis, a catapult of growth that began with her right choice in the face of moral ambiguity. In pursuing integrity, she had not only safeguarded her values, but revived the spirit of her father's legacy to lead with courage, honesty, and compassion. And as she stood watching the city from her office window, a deep sense of fulfillment washed over her. She had become the leader she aspired to be, embodying resilience. Reflecting on her evolution, she felt soul-deep satisfaction shimmering within her. Clara had turned a monumental challenge into a thriving honor, forever proud of achieving the very dream her father envisioned for her. And as she stood watching the city from her office window, a deep sense of fulfillment washed over her. She had become the leader she aspired to be, embodying resilience. Reflecting on her evolution, she felt soul-deep satisfaction shimmering within her. Clara had turned a monumental challenge into a thriving honor, forever proud of achieving the very dream her father envisioned for her. Clara was now ready for whatever lay ahead. The journey would undoubtedly be fraught with challenges, but equipped with newfound confidence, she would face it all head-on, marked by her unwavering commitment to effective leadership and ethical integrity. Do not let this sense of transformation escape unnoticed. If you've been moved by Clara's journey, it's crucial to support this channel. Subscribe immediately to keep up with the next exclusive emotional stories. Hit that like button now to help us feed the algorithm. It makes a difference. We want to hear from you. Comment your thoughts and reactions. They matter more than ever. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to witness this victorious conclusion. Only the truest fans of personal overcoming stories understand the impact of shared journeys.